I'm part of the adult programming committee here at the library, and we would like to welcome Linda back this year. She came and visited us last year when she released her last book, The Dead Will Tell, and she was very eager to come back this year, and we're excited to have her and host her as she releases After the Storm, the next book in the Kate Burkholder series. If you don't know much about Linda, I'd like to give you a little bit of background of her. She grew up in the small village of Ithaca, Ohio, not very far from here, and she knew from an early age that she wanted to write. She drafted her first novel at the age of 13 and has since written over 30 books and contributed to countless others. She's been nominated for multiple awards. She was nominated by the International Thrillers Writers for Best Hardcover, the Golden Heart, the Daphne de Mauro Award of Excellence, and a nomination for the prestigious Rita Award. Linda's first book in the Kate Burkholder series, Sworn to Silence, was turned into a movie, An Amish Murder, and her last book, The Dead Will Tell, was named a Boston Globe Best Book of 2014. So, please join me in welcoming Linda.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. I guess this is the calm before the storm. We're going to get storms this afternoon. But anyway, just wanted to thank everybody. I'm absolutely honored to be here again at the Massillon Public Library for the second year in a row. I want to send a special thank you to Dawn for all of the work. I want to thank all of the librarians for all the work that everybody put in to putting all of this together. And of course, Mr. Duncan the Ghost. You know, books are sacred things. They're part of our culture. They're part of our history. The written word is a cherished freedom we will never take for granted. Every book that you see on the shelf, every book that you pick up is a possibility. It's a fantastical trek into a place that exists only in a writer's mind. Books are an open door that offers a glimpse of a culture that may have otherwise remained closed. Librarians and booksellers know these things better than anyone. While it is the writer who creates the stories, it is the librarian who gets the books into the hands and into the hearts of readers. I could go on, but I think you understand where I'm coming from. And so I really want to send a heartfelt thank you to all librarians for your years of support, for sharing your enthusiasm. Thank you for recommending my books to the readers who love them. And thank you for all of the wonderful events. Thank you for answering any of my crazy author questions, and there are plenty of those. And not blinking when those questions are related to murder. Just to get some preliminaries out of the way, when I tell people, especially people from New York, my editors and my agents, that I'm from Ithaca, you know, they kind of perk up and they're like, oh, Ithaca, New York. And I tell them, Ithaca, Ohio, population 79. I wrote my first book when I was 13 years old, and I have kind of an interesting story about that. The book was about two 13-year-old girls who ran away from home on their Appaloosa horses. And, you know, over the years, I just assumed that that manuscript was long lost and that I would probably never see it again. Well, my dad passed away in about 1995, and my three sisters and I we were at his house. We were sort of going through all of his things, trying to decide what we wanted to give away to charity and what we were going to keep. And I just happened to be going through his desk drawers, and I found that old spiral notebook written, this book titled, I had titled it The Long Journey, and there was symbolism behind that too, written in pencil, and it still had my sweaty little palm print on the back of the notebook. But I discovered my passion for creating characters and for writing at a very young age. One of the things that I learned as I started learning about writing books as an adult was that the writing experts, they always tell you to write what you know. You know, if you're a professional athlete and you have, you know, if you're Terry Bradshaw, you can write a book about football. If you're a former police officer and you've worked on a high-profile case, you could write about that. In fact, I just signed books last year with Marcia Clark, who was the prosecutor in the O.J. Simpson trial. And so it's very, very helpful to have some kind of high-profile background or some kind of expertise that will really help you with the, you know, the knowledge that it takes to write whatever kind of book you're writing. And so here's me. I'm from Ithaca, Ohio, population 79. My first job was detasseling corn, which I did for 2 summers, beginning when I was 13. And my second job was I worked as a cashier at Quality Farm and Fleet, which has since been bought out by Tractor Supply. So what could I possibly write about that would be even remotely interesting to anyone? So I want to go back just a little bit. Being a practical Midwesterner and not having a writing background, I entered the corporate world, you know, went into college, entered the corporate world, met my husband. I moved from Ohio to Dallas, which is, Dallas, Texas is a very, very nice city, and entered the corporate world. And for 12 years, I was the franchise accounts manager at the regional office of Domino's Pizza. And I basically collected money from financially troubled franchisees. I was the person that, when I made phone calls, nobody ever returned my call because they knew I wanted money. So as I was going through this 12 years of Domino's Pizza, while I enjoyed my job and I got to travel a little bit and I met a lot of wonderful people, I could never really forget about my love of writing. I always had stories in my head, and I always thought that, you know, at some point I'm going to start a book, I'm going to write a book. So I began writing seriously, really in the early 90s, and I was one of those people who I would, you know, get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, write for a little while before work. If I made all the lights, the red lights just right, I could make it home on my lunch hour in 12 minutes. So that gave me about a half an hour to write. And then, of course, my husband was going to college at the time, and so I had my evenings free to write. And I wrote 4 books that way over a 12-year period. And unfortunately, none of those books sold. I submitted those books to every agent and publishing house in New York probably twice. And each and every one of those novels was rejected. And, you know, I knew a little bit about the publishing industry by this point, and I knew that as difficult as rejection is, it's part of the business. It's just part of the business. And when I look back on those 4 books that are basically, you know, doorstops now, I realized they're not good enough. They weren't good enough, but they were valuable to me as a writer because that's where I really learned to structure a book. It's where I found my voice as a writer. And I think it was a very, very important part of my writing education anyway. One of the things that I'm a firm believer in is that the more you do something, the better you get. So, as you can imagine, you know, a little bit discouraged after that, and it wasn't until 1999 that I finally got the call, and it came in from Harlequin Books. I had sold the romance to Harlequin, and over the next, gosh, I think I ended up writing about 9 or 10 books for Harlequin over the next few years. And then I sold a bigger, sort of a mystery, a romantic mystery to Berkeley Books. And I think I sold 8 books to that publishing house over the next, you know, 8 or 10 years. And so I was working a lot, and I had 2 editors at 2 different publishing houses in New York, which is a little bit unusual. I mean, it's hard enough just to get 1 publisher, but I was writing for 2. But one of the common themes that I kept getting from both of my editors was that these were basically romantic mysteries, romantic suspense that I was writing. And I was focusing too much on the mystery aspect of the books. And so my editors were telling me, these are romance novels. You need to concentrate on the relationship between the hero and the heroine, and not necessarily, you basically need to stop killing people. So at that point, I realized that I was probably writing the wrong genre. I felt like I had a big thriller trapped inside me, and I knew that's what I wanted to write. And so at this point, I was relatively successful, and I was sort of a mid-list author. I was getting some readers, but not getting any of the lists like the USA Today, Wall Street Journal, Publishers Weekly, or the New York Times, which is just about every writer's goal. And so I took a chance, and I wrote, I got an idea for a high concept thriller. And this thriller, I knew that I wanted a female protagonist. I knew that I wanted this book to be part thriller, part mystery, and part police procedural. But I knew that if I was going to break out with a big thriller, I knew that this book needed something more. It was missing something. And I took a trip with my sister and my brother-in-law, I think it was about 2004, 2005, to Fredericktown, where my brother-in-law is from. And he grew up in a 200-year-old farmhouse. And it's January, it's about 20 below zero. We're standing in a foot of snow in the front yard of this house, just sort of talking. And I hear the clip-clop shod hoofs coming down the road in front of the house. And I turned around and I looked, and I saw an Amish buggy with an Amish man driving and his family with him. And as a writer, seeing that was such an illuminating moment for me, because I realized that that setting, the setting of Amish country, Holmes County in Ohio, was the high concept setting that this big thriller that I had had in my head for so long was missing. And that's where the idea came to set the book in, in Amish country. So I took a chance and I wrote the first book in the series, Sworn to Silence, on spec. Nobody bought it, nobody even knew about it, but I poured this book out, and it was, as a writer, it was a fabulous experience for me. I was finally able to kill people, freely. And when I submitted it to my agent, she became very, very excited. And we started farming, sending it out to different publishers in New York. And there was a lot of excitement. And the book basically went to auction, and we went with St. Martin's Press, which is probably the best publisher in New York City. Did anybody happen to catch the movie, by the way, An Amish Murder, that was based on the first book? It was very, very exciting. I meant to bring a DVD today. I was going to give away a DVD, and I accidentally left it at my hotel room. So I'm either going to swing by Dawn one day this week, or else I'll mail you a copy, because I've got some extra copies that we really want to be able to give away today. But one of the things that I loved about the movie was the depiction of Painters Mill, Ohio. I thought they did a really good job. These work of art bank barns and the snowy scenes. I thought, and even the Amish, I think it was very, very well done. A little tidbit that a lot of people don't know, and that's that Neve Campbell was 4 months pregnant when she shot the movie. And I spoke to one of the producers, Barbara Lieberman, and she said that the running joke on set was, what are we going to have Neve carry today? Because if you watch the movie and you keep an eye on Neve, you'll see that she's either got her coat on, she's either carrying police files, or she's got a big scarf that's kind of, hiding her baby bump. But It probably would have gone a series, but of course, she wanted to be able to stay home with her baby and raise her family, which is completely understandable, although we're still very mad at her. But when it came to creating Kate Burkholder, I get a lot of questions about my heroine, and one of the things that once I figured out the setting of the books, one of the things that I knew that I wanted a protagonist. I wanted her to be in law enforcement. Even though there are plenty of female police officers, I think that law enforcement is still pretty much a male-dominated profession. And so I sort of wanted her to be facing that obstacle. And I also wanted to create a protagonist who could immerse us in the Amish culture. And Kate Burkholder was born Amish, and then because of something that happened to her as a teenager, she left. And so she's sort of been excommunicated by the Amish, but she's fluent in Pennsylvania Dutch. She knows all of the Amish customs. And so I knew that in writing this book, what I wanted to do was I wanted to be able to look at the Amish culture from an insider perspective. And, but I also wanted to be able to write from, well, the English perspective. And, you know, Kate Burkholder could give us an insight from both of those perspectives, I think. And one of the things I like about Kate is that she doesn't really fit in with the Amish, even though she was born Amish. She was pretty much ousted. You know, some of the Amish won't speak with her, some will. She's slowly but surely getting to where her family will take meals with her and speak with her. And because of her Amishness, though, she doesn't necessarily fit in with the English world quite right. And so I think the only place that she really fits in, where she's really comfortable, where she identifies herself, is with her small police force. But I couldn't think of a more interesting place to set a thriller. And one of the things that I love most about that is that Amish country, to me, is one of the most beautiful and peaceful and bucolic places in the United States. And to take a mystery, and murder mystery in particular, and it's this juxtaposition between the insertion of something evil into this peaceful, bucolic place. And as a writer, that very much appealed to me. After the Storm is hard to believe is the 7th book in this series, which is just incredible. One of the things I really love about the book is the idea of a small town cop delving into a 30-year-old cold case. And basically what happens in the book is sort of opens up a terrible storm, a tornado tears through the town of Painter's Mill. And you know, there's a lot of damage, and you know, there are injuries and casualties. And there were some Boy Scouts out cleaning up a barn, one of the old bank barns that had pretty much been demolished. And in the course of cleaning up after this storm, human remains are discovered buried in the underside of the barn. And so Kate is tasked with, first of all, she has to identify the bones. Then she and the coroner and the forensic anthropologist, they have to figure out, was it murder? Did this person die of natural causes, or what? And so that's sort of the mystery, and in this case, it takes her back into the Amish community. I also wanted to let everyone know that, before I close, that I've also written a couple of short stories, and a lot of people don't know about these short stories because, of course, they're too short to be a full book or to put into any kind of hard copy format. But they're 99 cents everywhere that Kindle, everywhere that ebooks are sold. And if you go out to Amazon or Goodreads, a lot of the fans are really liking these short stories. So I wanted to let everybody know in case you didn't know they were out there. Does anybody have any questions?
Linda, you said that you were really pleased with Painter's Mill in the film. where were they? Where did they do the filming?
Oh, good question. It was actually near Toronto. In several different areas. That area, I can't remember the name of the small town, but probably nobody would do this except for me because I was interested. But Kay Burkholder is jogging downtown after she receives the call about the first murder. There's a business called Leonardo's Pizza, and so I Googled Leonardo's Pizza, and it's a real place. And at that point, I figured out which town that it was filmed in. And so I thought that was very, very interesting, so. But I think they picked a pretty good locale for that. This, of course, Ohio would have been better, but it's Hollywood.
And did you have to do any research on the Amish community, or did you have any knowledge prior to writing your book about them?
I really didn't know very much. I rode the bus when I was in high school with either an Amish or a Mennonite girl. And, when you're a teenager, it really wasn't very interesting to me. And so I really didn't begin my research on the Amish until really 2004, 2005 when I took that trip. But since then, I've met two separate Amish families. I've had dinner with them, and this was actually thanks to one of the librarians at the Dover Library. She's friends with some Amish people, and basically got to have dinner with them. I got to tour. One of them has a milking facility of dairy cows, and the other one was, interestingly, I have horses, so I wanted to see the horses. He had a standard bred out in his barn, and so he immediately harnessed up the horse and asked me if I wanted to go for a buggy ride, and I was like, yeah, of course I do. He let me drive, and it was really, really interesting. And I know that there are mishaps occasionally in the area when it comes to, Amish buggies and cars just don't seem to match very well. And I can tell you, it's a little harrowing to be sitting in a buggy and to see an oncoming car on a narrow road. And I thought that was a very kind of a learning experience for me because, even well-trained horses can shy, dog runs out, you just don't know. But it was a very, very interesting, eye-opening experience.
Is her name Oliver?
Yes. Do you know him?
No, but we have some Mennonite neighbors and friends, and I was showing them the acknowledgments when we were in there.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, Oliver, he said, she made my teeth. Used to work for a dentist, and she made his teeth, and he was very well satisfied. But then I showed one of my aunts your book, let her read it, and she said, Oliver, she said, that's not an Amish name.
Yeah.
And here he was a Catholic.
Yeah, yes.
Did you know that?
He was adopted, I think, when he was 14 and became Amish when he was 14. I think he was in Canada.
Oh, you say when he was 14?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And he curates over at the Mennonite